All right. Good evening. This is Vice Chair Justin Cooley, and I would like to call this special meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Tola, would you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would Deputy City Clerk Megan Wilbanks please call roll?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Houghton? Here. Commissioner Jorgensen?
Here.
Commissioner Khan?
Here.
Commissioner Ringer is absent at this time. Commissioner Tully?
Here.
Vice Chair Cooley?
Here.
And Chair Munoz Morris is absent at this time as well.
So we are going to have public comment for items on the agenda only. As this is a special meeting, public comment is limited to addressing items that are listed on the agenda. Early this morning, staff issued a memo notifying the Planning Commission and the community that Capslo has withdrawn their application to host an interim safe parking site at 1700 Palm Street. Therefore, the Planning Commission will not take action on this item. Staff will provide an overview of the rotating safe parking program, and planning commissioners may provide feedback on the program, but no action will be taken on this item. Public comment will be accepted after the staff presentation. If you would like to speak, please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the deputy clerk. The deputy clerk will announce your name when it's your turn to speak. That brings us to consent. And the only item on the consent agenda are the minutes from the July 12th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Before I call for a vote, do any commissioners have any comments on consent or the minutes?
I do. I will be abstaining. I wasn't there in July.
All right, with that comment, do we have a motion and a second to approve consent?
I'll move to approve the minutes from July 12th.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now we are at the public hearing portion of the agenda. Would Homelessness Response Manager Daisy Weiberg and Housing Coordinator Kyle Bell please provide an overview of the rotating safe parking program?
Yes, and I'm going to jump in here real quick. My name is Timmy Tway. I'm the Director of Community Development. I've met many of you. For those of you who I have not met, it's nice to meet you. I'm newer to the city. I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here this evening. As you're all aware, this meeting was called to review the Director's action for safe parking on Palm Street. And you may recall that on July 12th, 2023, the Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit to allow a rotating overnight safe parking program operated by Capslo. For the past several months, the city has worked and will continue to work with community partners to identify viable safe parking sites for this program. And as part of this program, an application for the use of the portion of Palm Street was submitted per these regulations. The establishment of the rotating safe parking site is a director's action. However, as the director, I made the determination that this item would benefit from review by the Planning Commission, given that it was on a public street and it was the first application that we had received under this new blanket CUP. Since the item was originally noticed, we have received a number of public comments on the item, and I'd like to thank the public for all of their interest and comments that we received. Through this process, staff was made aware of recent case law that raises legal question as to whether the street can be closed for this purpose. And yesterday, as the Vice Chair stated, the application to establish interim safe parking at this site in particular was withdrawn by the applicant. This means that there is no longer an application for this use at this location under consideration by either the Planning Commission or staff. And because there's no application, no action will be taken at this meeting, as was stated by the Vice Chair. However, because the meeting was already noticed and the Public and Planning Commission have offered their time to be here, we as staff wanted to take the time to provide an overview of the safe parking program and for the Planning Commission and the public, and to provide an opportunity for comment from the public and the Planning Commission on the program. And with that, I will hand it over to Daisy Weiberg, who will provide a presentation on the rotating safe parking program for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Timmy. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. As Timmy said, my name is Daisy Weiberg, and I serve as the Homelessness Response Manager for the City of San Luis Obispo, and I'm joined tonight by our Housing Coordinator, Kyle Bell. The city has established preventing and addressing homelessness as a key priority in alignment with its major city goal for housing and homelessness and the SLO county-wide plan to address homelessness. According to point-in-time count data, the average number of people experiencing homelessness in the city of San Luis Obispo has fluctuated between 482 and 385 since 2015. Of those experiencing homelessness in the city, an average of 37% have been unsheltered, meaning that they reside in places not meant for human habitation, including public spaces, vehicles, and abandoned buildings. Countywide, 370 people are experiencing vehicular homelessness, making up 26% of the homeless population in SLO County and demonstrating the critical need for safe parking opportunities. CAPSLO's small but pivotal programs at 40 Prado Homeless Services Center and the Railroad location have historically been the only overnight safe parking programs in the region. On March 21st, 2023, the City Council adopted the first Homelessness Response Strategic Plan, which outlines the city's role in implementing strategies to prevent homelessness and connect individuals experiencing homelessness to services and housing. One of the goals outlined in the strategic plan reads as follows: collaborate with the county to develop scalable and replicable programs to connect those experiencing homelessness to a variety of shelter and housing options through timely outreach, and advocate for county implementation of successful programs. The Safe Parking Program was specifically identified as a key task under the strategic plan with the intent of working with the faith-based community to develop safe parking options throughout the community. So what exactly is safe parking? Safe parking provides individuals who are living in their vehicle with a safe place to temporarily park a vehicle overnight to facilitate the transition to permanent housing. Safe parking has emerged as a critical need in our city and across the state to provide community members who are living in their vehicles with a designated safe place to park overnight from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., not 24 hours a day, while providing a structured program and individualized case management. The city's Railroad Safe Parking Program, which is managed by CAPSLO, proved to be a highly effective model, connecting over 37 individuals or households to permanent housing. The Safe Parking Program provided stability and a consistent touch point for case management to help facilitate successful housing outcomes, as well as family reunifications, job placements, service referrals, and an overall sense of community. In addition, CAPSLO has been operating their 40 Prado Safe Parking Program for the past several years, providing safe overnight parking, case management, and access to services. Building off the success of the Railroad Safe Parking Program and the 40 Prado Safe Parking Program, our objective is to establish a rotating overnight safe parking program utilizing host sites throughout the city that meet the Director's Action requirements. The rotating model will continue to be managed by CAPSLO to provide oversight and case management while also minimizing disruptions at any specific location.
All right, I'm going to jump in. Kyle Bell, Housing Coordinator. As a quick overview, at the July 12th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing, the conditional use permit was approved to establish CAPSLO as a safe parking program administrator to oversee safe parking sites at various locations throughout the city. The conditional use permit delegated review authority to the director for location-specific review through a director's action permit. For example, the program was designed to Provide for, in the event that 12 locations were identified, the program would be able to rotate locations for safe parking about once a month. Each location would then only need to provide space for the program on their property for 1 month of each year. That's how the program was initially designed. The safe parking regulations establish performance standards that are required for any safe parking facility within the city. CAPSLO would be required to uphold and implement all relevant performance standards for each location within the program. Participants of the safe parking program are required to participate in case management, provide a background check, and enter into an agreement with CAPSLO to uphold all the terms and conditions of the program. Repeated violations of the program rules would result in removal of the participant from the program. The city establishes a good neighbor policy in order to maintain clear expectations between the community and homelessness services. CAPSLO is responsible for upholding the neighborhood relations plan for each new location added to the program. The plan includes providing notices to neighbors regarding relevant contact information should any concerns or issues arise, provide training for employees on procedures for emergency situations, host regular inspections of the site to identify any issues or needs, and upon request, provide neighborhood meetings to share information or address concerns. The intention was the neighborhood relations plan would be sent out to the community preceding any approval of any specific location. In advance of the railroad safe parking location closing on August 27th, the interim safe parking locations at 1700 Palm Street was proposed as an interim location as part of the rotating overnight safe parking program, while additional host site locations were confirmed. CAPSLO is still exploring options with the rotating safe parking program with city-owned facilities, community and faith-based organizations, businesses, and private property owners. As part of the host site selection process, there are a number of constraints that need to be addressed. A few of the constraints that have been identified during this process have included confirming cooperative partnerships between property owners and CAPSLO, insurance and liability, site control and security, minimum of a 50-foot residential buffer, adequate space for up to 15 vehicles, portable restrooms, wash station, and trash dumpster, and ensuring that the program does not conflict with any operations of the existing uses on the site.
In review, the Palm Street application has been withdrawn, as Timmy Tway mentioned, and the safe parking program, which ceased operation at the railroad location on August 28th, is officially paused until an interim location or rotating host site locations are approved. As such, there are unhoused community members living in their vehicles who are currently unable to park safely and do not have immediate access to case management and services. CAPSLO will continue to pursue potential host site locations with the intention of implementing the rotating overnight safe parking model. Additional proposed locations will go through the Director's Action permit process and will not be brought to the Planning Commission unless referred by the Community Development Director. All proposals will be thoroughly reviewed to ensure that sites meet the safe parking regulations, and there will be an opportunity for public comment through the Director's Action process for all proposed sites. We will keep the Planning Commission and community members informed on updates related to this important and impactful program. The impacts of homelessness are felt by our entire community, and it will take our entire community to develop and implement solution-minded ideas to prevent and address homelessness. And with that, we are open to questions, high-level questions related to the program. Again, there's no action being taken around Palm Street, so any questions can be addressed towards the general program.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Do any of our commissioners have questions? Go ahead.
I have a question about the conflict with the California Vehicle Code. Is this something that's confirmed as a definite no-fly zone, or is it a potential conflict with the vehicle code? Is it something that requires further research? Is this going to come back around once we know more about that, or is the Palm Street location completely DOA?
I can answer that question. Marky Kirsten, Assistant City Attorney. So yes, we reviewed the case that was cited by a member of the public, which we appreciate them raising that. It is a recent development in case law that represents a pretty significant shift of how municipalities have historically interpreted this section of the vehicle code. That said, there are some relevant distinctions in the facts between that case and this case. And so to say, you know, is it binding on this exact location? I can't answer that, and I won't in the public. That would be an attorney-client privileged communication. But it did raise and cast doubt on the plan as proposed under that section of the vehicle code. In light of that, and coupled with the significant public input we received and commissioner questions, we recommended, the city attorney's office recommended further review and exploration of other options to temporarily close, or sorry, not temporarily close, but to establish safe parking on this site lawfully under the vehicle code, but those are not being explored at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Well, was the withdrawal completely due to the vehicle code issue, or also was it due to public input?
I didn't have those conversations with CAPSLO, so I can't answer that question.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? All right, I actually have a question. I did my best to get through all the correspondence, and thank you for taking the time to write. One question I had was a question I saw cited a lot was differences between the Santa Barbara program and the safe parking program here. Can you speak to maybe some of those differences and why those choices were made?
Yeah, definitely. The Santa Barbara model is something that we've often cited as something that we'd love to aspire to. It's a robust model that's been operating since 2004. They have 26 permanent sites that they operate. They are not rotating. They have varying capacity at each of those sites as well. So some sites are smaller, some are only for RVs, some are for 50 vehicles, some are for 5. There's a lot of variation between each site. We've talked with the New Beginnings staff and have been able to answer or ask them a lot of questions about how they operate their site or their sites. We've also spoken with the city of Fremont, which is a rotating model, and so that's one that our program is more closely modeled after, is the city of Fremont's, where they currently have 5 faith community host sites that rotate monthly. And so between those two, we've tried to learn a lot of best practices. Again, the New Beginnings model in Santa Barbara is a best practice and something that we would be fortunate to aspire to if we can confirm more host sites. And I think that's where we felt asking the community and asking faith community sites, private businesses to be part of this rotating model was a kind of a first step to see if they were comfortable with a safe parking program and to have them host for 1 month out of a year if we can find 12 sites, and to potentially build towards a more permanent site where they're hosting on an ongoing basis. But the rotating model was meant to lessen the impact on any one location and to distribute that model across various sites throughout the city.
All right, thank you. And this question probably comes from the fact that I'm still relatively new to the commission, but when a director's action permit is approved, could we talk about what the feedback opportunities are for the public when one of those is issued? Maybe a little more detail about dates, how much notice is given, that sort of thing.
Yes, so typically director action permits don't require any sort of public noticing for postcards. We do provide a legal ad in the paper 10 days prior or 7 days prior to the final action or the scheduled action. However, due to the notice requirements of the conditional use permit, which is typically a 300-foot radius, we decided to follow the same noticing practices as a conditional use permit for this case, since the conditional use permit delegated the authority to the community development director for action. We thought that that noticing procedure should be identical as if it was a new conditional use permit. So that was our intention in providing a 300-foot noticing buffer. But typically, a director's action permit would not require any postcards, and it would just be a legal ad in the paper.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
This is more of a comment than a question, but we aired this issue out pretty well on July 12th at our meeting then. And at that time, I think it was almost unanimous public approval for the concept of the program. But at that time, it was kind of abstract, right? Because we weren't talking about any place in particular. Now we have a particular specific example, and I think this is an opportunity to kind of go through a dry run and address the issues that have come up. And I also read through all the comments. They were many, and there were some common threads in there. So I look forward to this opportunity to talk about it.
All right, thank you. And maybe some advice from the city clerk here now that the chair has arrived. What is our procedure?
Okay. You want the vice chair to keep running the meeting?
He started the meeting, he may as well, yeah.
Okay.
And might
Yep,
as well
we'll
say
just-
my apologies to everybody for being late today.
Thank you. We'll just note that you've joined the meeting at this time.
All right, with no further questions for staff, it is now time for public.
Can I ask one question? Sorry. Sorry, just because of your comment, it's something that came up to me when I was reading through the comments in the staff report. You mentioned you mimicked the CUP noticing process for this one just because of the project, et cetera. And if I remember correctly from reading the letters and the notice, the notice went out on August 7th, and the original action date was going to be August 14th. Is that correct?
7 days prior to the hearing,
the
so yes, that
director.
would be correct.
Yeah. So is CUP noticing also just 7 days in advance of action as well, or do we notice those typically with more advance notice?
The only timeframes we have are either 7 or 10 days, and so I don't have it quite memorized for the Planning Commission one, but we could double check on that and provide information to the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the noticing for both the director action and the planning commission items are all 10 days.
All right, if there are no further questions of staff, we will move to our public comment period. Deputy City Clerk, how many speakers do we have on this item?
We have 10, Vice Chair. Okay. We have the comment timer up on the screen. I'll go ahead and call the first 3 names just so you can be prepared to come up to the podium and speak. The first speaker is going to be Zach Moody, followed by Steve Jarrett, and then Gilbert Rojo.
Hi, good evening. I'm Zach Moody. Nice to meet you all. And I retired from the Navy after 20 years of service. My wife and I moved here a year and a half ago. She's a clinical pharmacist and saving people over at Sierra Vista. And this is my son, Lee. And my comments were kind of prepared for the Palm Street issue, but now that that's off the table, it still kind of applies to the safe parking program in general. So I take issue with the city's strategic response for homelessness. I think we're bringing a Bay Area mentality in. And basically, I really don't want this to turn like San Francisco. I lived in downtown San Francisco, and I'm seeing it here. I take him to Mitchell Park. I take him to Emerson Park. The only reason that one's cleaner is because there's no bathrooms and there's no place for the homeless to go. But you guys want to set up camps, rotating 30 days, whatever it is, right in our backyards. The Palm Street one was only 3 blocks away from us. I'm glad that it's being fought in court. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure a lot of these other people will attest to it. But Santa Rosa Park is overrun with homelessness. Mitchell Park, those are the 2 parks that we can walk to. I can't put him down without picking up a dozen cigarette butts before he goes to play. So, and you're talking about staff check-ins and all this and a 24-day average stay. Like, if they have functioning vehicles, have them park on the edge of town. Our town's not that big. So what happened to the pilot program that was over by the dog shelter? I mean, there's other places for these people to go if they have functional cars. So, I mean, we're talking about the Veterans Museum and parking right there next to it. You know, I have him run around there all day at the howitzer gun and the tank, and I tried to teach him and instill values about sacrifice. Well, these people need to learn how to sacrifice some of their bad habits and bad decisions. We need to stop enabling a series of bad decisions and a cycle. And we need to have some tough love and stop enabling these homeless people to make bad decisions. So this 34 people that got transitioned to permanent housing, that's not a success. When you move them into taxpayer-based housing or faith-based housing, that's not permanent. That's a Band-Aid solution, and they're just gonna be right back out on the streets. So let's not turn our city into an overrun RV parking lot area, and let's keep it safe. Thank you.
Next speaker is Steve Jarrett, and if you'd like to show support for somebody, you can raise your hands, but for the audio recording, please limit your clapping.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me comment on the safe parking program. I am a longtime homeowner in cities around the U.S., and I am a prospective homeowner here in San Luis Obispo. I also have the unique perspective of spending short periods of time at the train station safe parking program last autumn and again this early August. And I just wanted to mention that in my opinion, it has been remarkably successful in multiple ways. One is that it is a safe place for folks that are unhoused to actually find some stable and secure housing, even if the housing happens to be in their car. The second is that I believe that as you bring folks together and you provide the community services for them, you're also bringing them together in a space where they're not randomly distributed through town. As a homeowner in the past, one of the programs was based very much like what you're describing, and it pulled the people that had some challenges in life into an area where they were supported and for a little bit further away, but still within the same neighborhoods as people who had been living there their entire life, including myself. So just a general recommendation that the safe parking program find solutions to continue to work to support not only the unhoused population, but the neighborhood around town. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gilbert Rojo, followed by Mark Adams, Lynn Hamilton, and Roger Larson.
Well, I'm here on behalf, my name is Gilbert Rojo, and I'm here on behalf of the Disabled American Veterans, and we hold our meetings there at the Veterans Building, and well, I kind of agree with both gentlemen that were up here. I know what it was. I worked in San Francisco for 12 years, and I know what the housing program was there, and that was totally a disaster. It seems like what you're doing seems to be setting up things, but one of the main concerns of the guys was that, you know, we're a lot of old guys. I'm the youngest one, I'm 74 years old. So our guys were afraid, well, what are we gonna do? We can't come here at night anymore. We won't be able to, we'll have these guys hanging around all day. And they were pretty much afraid. But I have to compliment you on what you're doing. I think it's a great thing. I've lived in my car before, so I kind of agree with this gentleman that was right here. I know how that feels. I don't quite agree with being put out like we're some kind of an animal or something. We're human beings, and I think what you're doing is commendable, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Can I have the remainder of your time, sir?
Mark Adams.
Can you tell that?
Mark Adams, and I live in the Grove Street neighborhood there, the immediate neighborhood. I was the only neighbor within 300 feet that got a postcard. And I've never seen such a program that wants to eliminate the public from comment. The director is going to have discretion at will to designate places and eliminate public comment when you're going to impact a neighborhood. I don't understand that. I thought we had a democracy. Maybe we don't anymore. And so I was told that the program was going to be safe and solid. And the more I checked into it, I looked into Capslow more and more. The grand jury just got through investigating them on Oklahoma. They found 11 recommendations they needed to fix because of 2 dead people out there and also the lack of control. So and then the Railroad Square, I did an investigation of what was out there. I asked the police to send me the logs. They had 124 calls, of which 94 were vandalism, officer needs assistance, alarms, towed vehicles, drug overdose, abandoned vehicles, and threatening. So and then I talked to some of the business owners around there. It was a wipeout. Del Monte Cafe and all the others. The impact was huge for them. It's not a question of the program, it's what drew other people in closer to the program. I want to go over the New Beginnings. I called her directly, and Eric, you have given them about a third of the information. They do not allow on-street parking at New Beginnings, just so you know that for the record. And I've turned it in so you can call the director herself. They do not allow neighborhood parking. They have, by the way, it's not 26 lots. They just secured their 27th lot. So it's working for them. And what she told me, they want these people on their side because they're all potential donors. Now you have adversaries. The way they just discretionary said, we're putting it in your neighborhood. Here's one card for the entire neighborhood. Here's a 7-day notice. That is poor performance. I think what the city needs to do is re-examine its relationship with Capslo and maybe re-examine some of the city employees. They've had 8 months to secure an off-site building. They have not secured one church parking lot, one city parking lot for 8 months. These people have secured 27. There's something going wrong with the program. And maybe Capslo isn't working like we think it is. And maybe, Director, you need to take a hard look into it. It would require some hard decisions, which it's uncomfortable to do that, to look at your own personnel and say what's going wrong with our program. But the people that need to be helped are not being helped because these people, they got 27 lots. You've been talking to them, Eric. They have a 3-day training program for a small fee. We could send somebody down there and actually learn from them because they're experiencing success. And I just find it incredible that, we talk to them on the phone. I think we can do better on this whole program. And I hope the director not cut out the public, okay? We're citizens here. And you've allowed yourself to have discretionary power to just stick it anywhere you want, bring 40 people into a neighborhood and say, you know what, too bad.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Next speaker is Lynn Hamilton.
Good evening. Since Capslo has wisely decided to withdraw the application for this program to operate on Palm Street, my comments will focus on the city's and Capslo's mishandling of the entire safe parking program. I'm in favor of providing services to help the unhoused and have personally volunteered hundreds of hours with the overflow shelter program that predated 40 Prado at my church and in preparing meals for clients at 40 Prado and in the previous day center. However, the city's poor planning and management has led to the current complete shutdown of the safe parking services for unhoused people living in vehicles. The burden is not the responsibility of the Palm Street neighborhood who put up a fight about this location, and thank God we did. The burden lays solely on the city and also with Capslo, the program's operator. The city and Capslo have been disingenuous about the success of the Railroad Square program. Police records show that 123 calls were made since October 2021, outlined by Mr. Adams, 63 of which were made after the program reset in September 2022. Capslo says 34 people have gained housing. That's great, but they don't give you the denominator. That's 259, which is a 14% success rate. Less than, it's 13.6. That's well below the 40% medium rehousing rate and 34% average success rehousing rate. That is according to a 2021 USC study of 43 programs, similar programs nationwide. I don't think that's success. Overnight monitoring is left to a parking participant and there is no outside security detail. The grand jury reports on the county's Oklahoma Site Village program, which is managed by Capslo, documented numerous safety and program violations, and the Planning Commission in July didn't even question it and fully approved it without question about the management of that program. Why the city has faith that Capslo can effectively run the city's overnight parking program is beyond me. If the railroad program was a success and the community had confidence in its oversight, case management of participants, consideration of the health and safety issues for both the participants and surrounding community, Capslo would have already found plenty of host locations for its rotating safe parking program. Because Capslo's rules are relatively lax and oversight and enforcement is minimal compared to Santa Barbara's program, clearly host locations are reluctant to put their property and neighbors at risk. My own church, the United Methodist Church of San Luis Obispo, used to host the Overflow program for women and families for at least 1 month per year. For many years, it was a tightly managed program with oversight, and it worked well. The safe parking program is not. Places like churches that have zero tolerance for alcohol and drug use on their property won't volunteer for a program with no oversight and enforcement, which Capslo so far has been unable to provide, and the city has not insisted upon this. In short, the city and Capslo need to do better for the unhoused community and for the residents of San Luis Obispo. Thank you.
Next speaker is Roger Larson, followed by Mr. Velonikis, and then Ann Wyatt.
Hello. I own property at 1660 Palm, which is adjacent to the Vets Hall, which will be adjacent to the proposed parking area. Happy to see that it's not going to happen. I wrote an email and sent it to the council and to the board, and I suggested some other sites because I believe this program could be successful. What boggled my mind was, why would they have a first time of taking up a public street? That I could not fathom. There's so many other opportunities to make this project successful. Case in point, Damon Garcia Park. We would be in operation 7 to 7. There's no soccer being played between 7 and 7 generally. And it's segregated. It would be easy. There's no redirecting of traffic. The cost would be a lot easier. There was going to be a tremendous expense just rerouting traffic around Palm Street. Why wasn't that even considered? And I mentioned another one, Cuesta Park, just at the end of Luma Street, county owned. We could not get an agreement with the county to use that park. I'm shocked that we wouldn't have that type of an agreement. Cuesta Park would be the ideal location. There are very few people that use that place. For the next 6 months, yes, we're going to be going into late night hours. It's going to be dark at 4:30 in a few months. 7 to 7 will be in all dark practically. That'd be a perfect place. No one's going to be playing baseball there. So who I really blame is the city council, and their staff should have supported the city council. They did not give you enough insight into what was going to happen of the taking of a public street. We, just the citizens, knew that was wrong. And I'm shocked that someone in the city council didn't say, this is going to be a problem. Shocked. I'm sorry that we spent so much time going down this path. Months. We could have had our people be in house someplace, cars. And why aren't we successful? I blame the project. It shouldn't be this hard. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Velonikis.
Howdy, folks. First off, Miss, I want to thank you very much for being like the one person I know that got my name right for the first time in 10 years. Very good job. You guys may know me as Mr. Velonikis. I've been contacted with this council for the last 2 weeks. I am currently a resident of Capslo's 40 safe parking spot at their facility at 40 Prado. What a lot of people in the public may not know is since I've been there for the last 8 months, we have had near about 18 to 20 people at any point in time throughout the entire day housed safely there. About 2 weeks ago, unilaterally, without any consultation with the community that was living in their parking lot, Nathan decided to tell everybody that they had to be out and they were no longer welcome in their parking lot during the day, forcing many out onto your streets. Me and my friend Don had to sit there and fix many cars those 2 weeks so that they wouldn't get towed because of that. I went in, I took Nathan to task. There has been a bit of retaliation for that, but we're working that out at the moment. And thankfully, I can report that at least the 2 members that I know of that are in safe parking, me and one other person, are now currently allowed to stay in their parking lot for the entire day as we have been historically allowed to. One of the things that may people not realize is that Capsule has plenty of parking space in which they can continue this program, but they have not spent any money in having an armed security guard or security guard out there to actually handle that program. The whole putting tags onto the people to keep track of them, I had to come up with that idea. They were just going to kick us out because they couldn't keep track of the people that were in the program, apparently. So I had to come up with that idea for them. They could literally easily house and supervise at least 22 to 24 people in their own parking lot without impacting the city. But for some oddball reason, they thought expanding the program meant taking 8 official parking lots, building it up to 2, and then kicking us all out for the rest of the day. As other speakers have said that, yes, Capslo has been mismanaging their programs. This is the first time in which I have been able to talk to a person to actually get housing since the 8 months there. And it only seems to have happened because I've been making noise in their offices. What other failures? 2 people died in a fire. They also tried to sandbag a grand jury subpoena over documents and got forced to hand it over anyways. I mean, I don't know what Capslo has been doing for the last 30 years. I've been here only 5 working as a firefighter in Santa Margarita, and I have kept some half an eye in the last 2 weeks since they caused all these problems for me. I've been digging around in what they have been doing, and I personally don't understand how you guys can continue to let them operate as they do without any oversight whatsoever. And also the other thing that I commented the day that I came up with this morning was, how come the homeless in this area don't have an ombudsman like the elderly folk do have in the nursing home? We are a very vulnerable population with absolutely no voice or recourse when it comes to the problems, when it comes to the organizations we deal with. Thank you very much for the time.
Next speaker is Ann Wyatt, followed by Tom Nolman, Phylan R., and finally Miles Couch.
Good evening, Commissioners, Vice Chair, Honorable Vice Chair, Chair, and Commissioners. I'm Ann Wyatt, and I come before you tonight with a heavy heart. I had hoped to thank staff for their work and to encourage you to approve a project tonight. I appreciate the concerns of the neighborhood that you're having to grapple with and the concerns about the organizations that operate this program in a very messy realm. And I usually try to put people to sleep with statistics about housing policy when I'm up here, but along the lines with a comment of Commissioner Houghton and the suggestions that have been made to try to tell stories to speak to some of these issues, as a horrible storyteller, I thought I'd make an attempt. There was a Cal Poly student, probably one of the worst Cal Poly Masters of Regional Planning students ever, required to do a survey for a class. And she was a procrastinator and she didn't want to do the survey. So she put the survey off and put it off until the last minute. Finally, a survey had to be done. So she went out and she was really pleased to find that of XYZ person surveyed, 100% of them said they were interested in helping solve homeless, unhoused housing issues. And she was really interested and excited to see that statistic that 100% of survey participants were. At the same time, that same 100% of persons surveyed had a variety of reasons why their block was in an inappropriate place to serve any of these unhoused. And again, 100% for helping and 100% with a variety of reasons why their block wasn't going to be the right place to help. I mean, it puts us in this predicament we're in. This many decades later, that lousy student works in homeless issues and sees the messiness of that position we're in daily. I'm sorry you're faced with this predicament before you tonight, and that our community is, and the challenge this creates, and the havoc it's wreaking in our communities. I just note what we all know, the unhoused are here amongst us now. We have hundreds of people living on our streets. This option of helping provide basic services for these people out in their vehicles who have something at least is a huge step and one of the most practical steps we can take. So I would encourage you to find some way to make a program happen, if not tonight, soon. And I thank staff for their ongoing efforts and all of you and community members who are working toward that end. Thanks.
Tom Nolman?
Do I stop? Okay. Well, first off, please bear with me. I'm not a public speaker, and I wasn't really planning on speaking today, but I just want to talk about this as a resident of that neighborhood. This idea will significantly impact the people of the neighborhood, both the safety and the quality of life. As you look at the Railroad Square disaster, I drive by there every night coming home from work. And it isn't just the cars that were there. If you look in that place, there's a lot of attendant cars associated with these people or associated with the idea that this is a safe place. And there's probably 10 or 15 other people living in their cars, trash everywhere, a disaster. Okay, this is a residential area that we're talking about here. And the residents are all, we're taxpayers, I work hard. I've worked hard for over 50 years to be able to afford to come into a place like this where the weather's good, where the people are nice, and the quality of life is nice. And to have it degraded for no reason at all from non-tax paying people, it just doesn't seem appropriate. You put it right inside of a residential area, like was mentioned, that Cuesta Park. Have you guys, I hope you're all familiar with Cuesta Park. It is secluded. It is away from residents. It's a perfect opportunity. Yeah, it's part of the county, but if the county doesn't want to cooperate with you, how are you sticking it to your residents? That's another government agency. This place is just the wrong place. It's just the wrong place. And, think about it. Overnight parking is outlawed throughout this whole city. There's got to be a reason for that, right? Residents don't want a bunch of people parking in front of their house and a bunch of people walking around. I mean, if you look at, we all look around and see what the unhoused people, there's trash everywhere. Okay, I don't know how they accumulate it, but there's trash everywhere. There's vandalism that's associated with it. You hear all these police calls associated with the Railroad Square. In our neighborhood, we have a lot of homeless people, unhoused people, walking through our neighborhood. And these people, some of them, they really need some help. I mean, they're yelling and screaming for no reason. They're a safety concern. I'm not so worried about the 17 people or the 15 people cars you're going to have there. I'm worried about all the other people. Nere's the other thing. There's nothing, once these other people are there, they're not going to park in there, but they're going to park in all the streets around there. And there's nothing the police can do about getting them out of there. If they're in a car and they can park there for 3 days if they want to without being kicked out. I just think it's a quality of life issue that hasn't been really thought of. And it's simplistic. I do feel for the needy, but I think it's going to impact. I don't think it should be put into a residential area, especially with no notice whatsoever. Thank you.
Next speaker is Phylon R., Miles Couch, Jack Leahy, and then Kathy Walker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is a touchy situation. I'll tell you personally what happened to me. I bought a couple of sandwiches, and as I was walking back by the bridge, I heard clapping, 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 and a female pulled my stick and she wanted those sandwiches. I don't know how the hell she knew they were there, and she's vicious. I've crossed that bridge more than you ever want to know, and I live in that area. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know all these numbers and things, but something has to be done. People in my neighborhood are too busy, can't be here. I heard the radio program, it addressed things. It's a touchy situation. It's not easy. But then again, there is nothing easy in life today. I can tell you horror stories. I have friends that live in LA. It's beyond worse. But I live here. Bad enough my water bill goes to Pasadena. No one can tell me why. And pay property tax. Oh, she's dead. Next. Heartless. Your job's not easy. But then again, living here is not easy anymore. I was assaulted. I don't want to talk anymore. I think if you don't get the message, you never will. And it's not an easy job to have.
Okay, Phylon R., and then Miles Couch. Oh, I'm sorry, was that Phylon? Okay. Miles Couch.
Hello, I support this program, and I think it's unfortunate that a program that benefits the whole city, including our homeless neighbors, has been allowed to expire due to neighborhood pushback and lack of a carefully researched contingency plan. I live near Mitchell Park, and I'd welcome this program in my neighborhood if in fact it does need to be relocated from the railroad area. I appreciate your work on this issue and hope that you can work promptly towards reestablishing the program. Thank you.
Jack Leahy, and then the last speaker is Kathy Walker.
Oh. Sorry. Okay. First off, thank you, Planning Commission. Daisy, Kyle, Timmy, thank you all. Everybody at the city for being so supportive of this program in its iteration at Railroad and our safe parking program at 40 Prado. I realize I didn't introduce myself. I am the Director of Homeless Services, Jack Leahy at Capslow. Yeah, there were a lot of things that were said here, some of which, you know, I am going to respond to, but I am going to talk about kind of what we do and why we do it here in Capslow. So the first thing I want to clarify is that we do not manage and have never managed the safe parking site at Oklahoma Avenue. It's a misconception from, you know, who's on first, what's on second, and, you know, who's running the site. The county of San Luis Obispo has always been in charge of the Oklahoma Avenue safe parking site. Our role came in well after the site was established to provide targeted outreach and case management. We were there to advocate for individuals on the site. We were there to set up housing plans with them, and we were there to work with them to resolve their experience of homelessness, not to manage the site. We had submitted proposals, but it was deemed that those would not be able to move forward due to funding limitations that we were requesting to run the site safely. We continued to provide the outreach and case management because we had gotten to know the participants on that site, and we have been able to house over 30 households off that site. Some people who have reunified with families, some people who have moved into permanent supportive housing, some people who have moved into permanent housing outside of the county. At Capslo, and specifically in the Homeless Services Division, we measure our success by how we are adapting our services based on community feedback, both for the unhoused and the housed. And I'm proud to say one of the participants gave an example of how feedback was given to program staff on how we could improve a program. We integrate that feedback as quickly as we can to make sure the program is adaptable and works for the community. Same thing with feedback that we get from our neighbors. We do integrate that feedback as well. We measure our success also by how many people we're serving and how many people we're housing. In the last year, we've provided shelter for over 1,000 individuals. That's individuals who are parts of families and individuals who are just single adults. We have assisted over 100 individuals into permanent housing, and we provide outreach, sheltering, and navigation to the Mid-County area, which includes San Luis Obispo. That's on my time. Thank you so much.
And the final speaker is Kathy Walker.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kathy Walker. Thank you for recognizing the case law that I sent to you. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a paralegal, but it was a quick Google search for me to find that case that said that you're not able to close a public road. I wasn't planning on speaking actually, but I wanted to address a couple of things. First of all, Daisy said at the beginning, or when she was giving her presentation, that there are currently unhoused people living in their cars that are unsafe due to the closing of the railroad square. And I'm wondering why the city doesn't identify and open a city lot. They've had 8 months to do so. Also, I do completely agree with all of Lynn's comments. I've had a chance to read the grand jury report. I'm sensitive to Jack's role, but I saw that they were paid $170,000 to manage the site out at Oklahoma Avenue for 1 year. And they did not turn over, according to the grand jury report, they did not turn over information that was requested of them. So, and the railroad square did have similar problems to that at Oklahoma Avenue. I think that city staff needs to provide greater funding for this program to provide security overnight. I don't think that the $60,000 that they give Capslo is enough to run a safe parking program. Since homelessness is one of the major city goals, City Council last night voted to spend $650,000 to revamp a 1,000 square foot park downtown at Chang Park to add lighting and things like that. How can they find money for that, but they can't find money for a safe parking program to provide security? That doesn't make sense to me. And then I think that also staff should partner with the New Beginnings program in Santa Barbara. It's the one very successful program in the state. They do offer a mentorship. They offer a 3-day training. I think that the city could benefit by taking advantage of that. And then lastly, I just want to address, I think that us as a community, we are concerned about the homeless. I know I don't like to be painted with a broad brush that we're NIMBYs or that sort of thing. My husband and I, during COVID, we had a friend who lost their income and we allowed them to live in their van on our property for 1.5 years. We live near Cal Poly. So it's not true that we don't care. I think we're all looking for solutions. It's just that the solution proposed for Palm Street just wasn't a good one. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment?
No, chairs, there's not.
Does anyone wish to make any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll take it back to the commission. Do any commissioners have any comments on the program or wish to ask any further questions?
Okay, I've got a little list of things here. So thank you for the written and spoken comments to all of you. And again, it's kind of fortunate that we have sort of this practice run because some of the pressure is off. It's not going to happen right here, but the issues and the concerns that you're raising are the ones that we're going to face kind of wherever this thing lands. And remember that it is a rotating program, so wherever it is, it's going to be temporary. My own personal thought as I was going through this, like, what if I lived right next door to this? And so I had to kind of put myself in your shoes. And then I reflected on the fact that, well, I have homeless people near my house as it is now. And doing nothing is also, there's also an impact to our neighborhoods. And this is a problem that is a really hard one to address. And to me, it's kind of an all of the above. And everywhere in California that this is happening, programs are being tested, tried, modified, adapted. And Lord knows in LA and San Francisco, huge sums of money are being thrown at it. We're building housing and we're trying to clear camps and so on. This safe parking is a relatively easy part of the problem. These are people that have vehicles. They, by and large, have jobs, which means that they are taxpayers as well. I happen to live in the Anholm neighborhood, and where I am, the creek is nearby. We have homeless people that show up there and camp out there. I woke up and went out to my van, parked in the driveway. This is about 3 weeks ago, and a gentleman had helped himself to sleeping in my camper van. So things are happening, and we need to, excuse me, turn that off. So doing nothing has an impact as well. As far as the success of the railroad parking program, there was a pretty wide disparity in public opinions about how well that worked. Some folks that lived near there spoke very highly of it and said that the people that were there were family oriented, they were kind, that they were not creating a problem. I've ridden my bike through there many times too, and so I'd be interested in hearing from staff kind of a refresher on the success or failure, or what we learned from that. This is all stuff that we talked about back in July as well when we went through all this. So there were some comments that CapsLO has no oversight. I don't think that's the case, and so I wouldn't mind having a little bit of insight on exactly what sort of oversight there is. For CapsLO, I believe you have a board of directors, and somewhere along the line, where it's a partnership with the city. So I'll just get through the rest of this. There was a comment about having a homeless ombudsman. That seemed like a pretty reasonable idea, and I was wondering if that had ever been attempted or if there was any way to get to that. Somebody spoke that was a representative or at least involved with the veterans facility, and there seemed to be some uncertainty as to their position on this particular location. They're right next door, and I think somebody had implied that they didn't want this, but somebody said that they did. So those are some of the questions that I have that I think would be of interest to us all to hear. So I'll stop there.
And Deputy Clerk, some advice. Is it best to let everyone make their comments, or should we go to staff to respond to anything now?
If you want direct answers to your questions, it's probably best to let staff just respond unless you're compiling a list, and it might just keep things a little more direct.
I just kind of tossed out my whole laundry list there without stopping. So however it works out to respond to those.
Yeah, and sir, in the public comment section of the meeting is closed, so this is deliberation.
Okay, I can address a few of those questions, and Kyle may jump in as well. But in terms of the first question about railroad safe parking, there were difficulties with the ancillary parking lots in that neighborhood. And so I think even some of the public comment addressed that our safe parking program and the participants of that program, we had very few incidents over the course of that program there. There were issues, and a lot of the calls for service with the police department were not for our participants. It was for issues outside of the program itself and in the surrounding parking lots. That site was difficult because of conflicting hours with parking. There are some 10-hour parking spots in that lot. There are also historically, before safe parking was located there were issues with people congregating near the railroad and just transient individuals in that neighborhood. And so that is something that separately we continue to work with the police department and parking enforcement to address those issues, but it was definitely distinct from our safe parking program. Our safe parking program participants were often individuals that were calling the police. Some of those calls for service were from our participants themselves who noticed individuals coming through that neighborhood, or if there were issues, they felt a real sense of protection and ownership of that site and obviously wanted to protect it and feel safe because that's where they were sleeping at night. And so that site, that was one of the factors that led to us not pursuing that as a permanent location, just because of the difficulty of having site control and then the conflicting hours with parking at the different lots.
If I can follow up on that, there were a couple of comments to the effect that the police logged over 100 incidents over some period of time, and you're saying that most of those were outside of the safe parking, and that raises the question, is there a spillover effect that happens when you do a safe parking program and then there's some kind of congregation that's going to happen around? And that seems like it would be likely to happen here because you got the big veterans parking lot there. So what might we say about that?
Yeah, and just to, again, follow up on the PD data, that is, yeah, the entire railroad area, not just the safe parking program. I know CAPSLO staff, again, I don't want to fully speak for them, but they do track the incidents and reports at the site itself. So those are distinct kind of incident reports, and I believe they've had one incident involving a participant since September of last year. So again, the incidents for the participants in the program itself are low. There are ancillary issues, and as everyone has mentioned, there, in any neighborhood in the city and the state, there can be impacts of homelessness that we're all feeling and experiencing, and those are issues that we continue to work, like I said, with our police department and the different departments in the city. We have our community action team with the police department and our mobile crisis unit through the fire department that are out there conducting proactive outreach to community members. They can always be called via contacting the non-emergency dispatch line if just outreach is needed for individuals, and so that's something that we definitely always recommend. And it's, again, an issue that we have prioritized as a city. It's our major city goal, and it's something that we'll continue to prioritize in any of the locations that we consider for safe parking and just the city as a whole.
If I could interject real quick, Kyle Dell, Housing Coordinator. I just wanted to add that the rotating aspect of the program was one of the reasons we designed the rotating program, to make sure that we reduce the effects of any potential spillover or anything like that by having the program relocate throughout the year. That was one of the intentions.
And how about CAPSLO oversight? Is there a quick answer to that?
Yeah, I did want to mention with the safe parking program in particular, they have a rules or rights and responsibility document that every participant is required to sign, and it is very detailed in terms of outlining the requirements for participation in the program in terms of the nightly check-in starts at 6 p.m. It's from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Their staff are on site to check in participants. Between 6 and 7, their staff are on site at 6:45 a.m. to check out all participants. There is an item in the rules document that participants are not allowed to be within a half-mile radius of the safe parking site outside of the program hours. Current identification, insurance, auto registration, and a criminal background check are required for all participants. And again, they outline a lot of rules and regulations that they enforce for all participants in the program. And then oversight for the organization as a whole, I'm sure they could have provided more feedback on, but they do have a board of directors, and they are a well-established and reputable organization.
That's kind of what I was getting at. So if somebody's unhappy with the way that CAPSLO is managing certain programs, then there's avenues of redress and ways to provide feedback to that. It's not, they don't just do whatever they want.
Correct.
One of the questions that Commissioner Houghton asked about was and I know this is kind of outside the scope of this program, but whether or not the idea of a homeless or unhoused person ombudsman had ever been attempted, or if there are any issues with that you'd like to discuss.
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if any of my colleagues have feedback on that.
I missed the question. Could you rephrase that?
Yeah, one of our public commenters and then also Commissioner Houghton raised the idea of whether or not the idea of a unhoused person ombudsman had ever been attempted, some sort of representative.
Or some sort of organized representation if that's even possible.
I think there's a term that I'm missing in there. Could you repeat that term?
Ombudsman?
Yes. Could you? I'm sorry. I'm
It's
not
kind of like a
familiar.
peacemaker, sort of, or
Representative?
negotiator.
But yes. Okay. So yeah, the program does designate a site captain without responsibility. So that's what that would fall under the site captain's authority as being appointed that position. It's the site captain is somebody who's been a participant in the program for a period of time, who's familiar with the program, who's been on good behavior with the program, and would provide that as would be compensated as well for taking that responsibility to oversee the site each night.
And in terms of a broader conversation about that, I'm not aware of that. I'm also new to the city in this role, but you know that we do have newer staff positions within the city dedicated to policy and programs. And we often, and Daisy can speak to this, but again, point people in the direction of service providers, our partners in the community who can connect people with services and advocate on their behalf in certain instances. So it's really a partnership with various groups in the community.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe I'll start with a follow-up. So based on Commissioner Houghton's question a little bit earlier about staffing on site and the answer, it seems like there is no program staff on site overnight, just at the beginning and then at the end. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, in talking, I know New Beginnings has been brought up a lot. They operate on a similar model. They do have a staff member that drives by the site once during the night, but they do not have anyone on site for the duration of the program. And currently, there's no CAPSLO staff on site during the middle of the night, but there is, again, this site captain that's appointed that is responsible for contacting CAPSLO staff if there are any issues. And again, they are also able, obviously, to call 911 or the non-emergency line if there are any issues, which they do frequently if there's something.
Okay. Was that just a decision made purely on the program model that was being adapted for use in our city, or was it a budgetary decision?
That, I would say, is more of just a program design with CAPSLO as the service provider, making that decision in terms of how the program is operated.
Okay. I'll just note, just having some experience with contracting for these kind of services, that $60,000 for a year-long program seems a little short to have ample oversight. I'm not quite sure what the costs are there, obviously, but it definitely raised a yellow to orange flag for me when I heard that number for such a arguably important program based on the city's priorities. Another question that I had for city staff before I kind of offer up my comments is, do we have a general idea of what is the cost for noticing for agenda items? Are we talking about maybe $5,000 to $10,000 to get postcards and advertisements out? Is it more or less? Do we have an idea? If we don't have a number, that's fine. I'm just, because I know there were some comments earlier about why haven't we noticed, and I know we discussed that we're not legally required to notice for those kind of items, but we chose to anyway. And there's been some talk as well about costs and stuff. So I was just wondering, what are the costs for voluntarily doing this, like kind of offering this additional service?
Yeah, I don't have like an actual number of, like what the cost is for like noticing for like a planning commission meeting, but it's built into the fees for the application types. So
Okay.
Planning commission fees are higher than director action fees because a part of that portion of that goes to postcard notification, 300-foot radius.
Okay. So there isn't necessarily an additional cost to the city. Actually, I guess in this case there was, because it wasn't covered by planning commission fees.
There would be more costs
Okay.
to note. To
do
the
a
more you
courtesy notice
Yeah, the more
to
you
the
know, the
community.
further out you notice,
Okay.
the more cost there will be.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. I guess I'll just kind of finish up with my comments, which are kind of in line with what we've heard already. But first thing is to express appreciation to everybody that showed up today or who has sent in a public comment. I do read them all, and I do appreciate hearing from you all, and I really appreciate you all making the time to come in here and speak with us face to face, because it can be really boring to sit here in front of an empty audience many evenings. So I really appreciate having this interaction. To me, this is what democracy looks like, and It's not necessarily pretty, and it can be pretty messy, but this is what it looks like. So I am very appreciative of having the opportunity to have the conversation with you all. And I have to admit that kind of through thinking about this now non-existent application or withdrawn application, I've gone back and forth as far as how I felt about it. Working in mental health services, I absolutely understand the value of programs like these. I'm not here to debate the validity of having a safe parking program for people who absolutely need them and have nowhere else to go and would in fact still be in our community somewhere should they not have a place to go. And arguably perhaps even less safe if there's no oversight, they don't have sanitation facilities, trash facilities, etc. So I'm not here I'm not going to comment on whether we should or should not have the program, because I think the program is very valuable. The way it's designed right now, I'm not sure if it's the best way. At first, when I first saw it, I was like, well, what's the big deal, right? We have a city street, it's public property. Public property is for everybody, right? If we can manage this and it's within the code and it helps our community members, some of our community members, okay, it's maybe a bit of a bummer for the neighbors, right, to have this come in, but it's certainly not the only neighborhood that's exposed to issues like this. As Commissioner Howard mentioned, I too live in a neighborhood near the railroad tracks. We see tents go up, every once in a while, and we have to make a call and address it. And so that need is not going anywhere. And unfortunately, we don't have enough houses to house everybody that needs one. So something has to be done. So what should we do, right? So I went back and forth between, well, I mean, okay, let's just kind of get over ourselves. And yeah, this might be a little bit messy, but we need to just kind of push through with this. And then as I sit here and I listen to you all, I'm starting to have my doubts, because is a city street really the best place for this? And I'm not sure that it is. And hearing from kind of other programs and varying success rates from other programs, I wonder if there aren't other options that we can explore. And I hope that there are, obviously, given the point that we're in now. But I want to address a few things that stood out to me from the comments. The first one is there were several letters of support, which I really appreciate. Oftentimes, when we receive correspondence, it's usually because something went wrong and people are upset, right? So it's kind of like Google reviews or Yelp reviews, right? There's a bias towards negative ones because you're not going to voluntarily go in there if things were just okay. But if they were terrible, you want everybody to know, right? So usually comments tend to go heavy on the opposition side of any item, which is perfectly okay. I think everybody's opinion is perfectly valid and fair, and you all have your own stakes and your homes, et cetera, that you want to look after, and your family members as well. But there were there have been maybe one or two comments here today, but certainly several in written correspondence that seem to kind of criminalize homelessness. And that upsets me a little bit, because we've heard from some members here who have taken advantage of these programs. The unhoused are as wide a range as the housed, right? My home may look very different from yours. And some people have a condo, other people have a giant mansion out in the countryside, right? And they're both housed, and they're in very different positions in life. The same is true of the unhoused. And I would hate for the program participants to be thrown in the same bucket as other members of our community that are causing all of these issues that you've all identified today, and that are very real and that are happening out there. But I think we need to make a distinction between people who are actively seeking to improve their own condition and find supportive housing, and they're engaging either with the city or with the contracted providers that the city has to make an effort to show up for themselves. And I just want to be very mindful of not criminalizing people who may be in that situation through no fault of their own, especially the children that are there with their parents, right? How are they guilty of their situation? And I feel for them too. They're members of our community as well. And I feel like we have a debt to them, right? And we need to do right by them as well as doing right by you all. So that one is kind of, it bugs me a little bit. I don't like hearing those things because it is true that some of these issues happen out there, but it's also true that there are many wonderful stories that come out of these programs as well, and I think that has to be celebrated as well. Lastly, I think I hope that the city will be able to bring forward another proposal for us very soon, because I know that time is of the essence, obviously, and I tend to agree with some of the comments that there may be other sites out there that are better suited. I'm not sure what kind of agreements can happen with the county, what their interest is in partnering with the city on these things, or what other private nonprofit organizations and their facilities, what interest they might have in supporting this program. But I certainly hope that we can find a resolution for these people who absolutely need it, and one that doesn't cause so much consternation with the community. Yeah, I mean, I had other comments, but I think that was really it. I mean, it's kind of a hard place to be in, right? Because it's kind of an all of the above, like Commissioner Houghton said. Do we want a big mess in our neighborhood? No. Do I want people screaming and walking around and peeking in my windows, at night when my daughter and my wife are at home? No, I don't want that. It doesn't make me feel safe. It doesn't make me, I don't go wild with excitement when I bike through the railroad district with my daughter, and I see the site and I see people that are in a tough situation. But I also don't feel like they're doing something wrong. And I think that's kind of where I am now. I feel like we have a responsibility to do something for these people, and I'm not quite sure what the best solution is, but I think it would benefit us to have a good look at how the program is set up and maybe consider enhancements to it. I don't know if we can establish, more clear MOUs or agreements between city and CAPSLO as far as this spillover effect. What is the responsibility of CAPSLO to manage things outside of the program versus what's the responsibility of the city? But also, can we maybe have staff that, even if it's just that one drive-by once a night, like the Santa Barbara program, can we not put the burden on a participant to be the observer and reporter of incidents, and allow them to just be a resident of the site as they have many other things going on? So I would very much appreciate to see some sort of effort there to kind of improve the operations, if whatever is possible. Again, I don't know all the details, but I do think there's a way forward here. I thank you all for coming out, and I really appreciate the discourse, and I'm glad that it's working out in a way that hopefully is to your favor and that we can find somewhere else. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, like Chair Munoz-Morris, I really think this was very instructive tonight, and it was very helpful for all of you to take your evening and your dinner out and everything to come here and speak. I guess my own sense is structurally, the way budgets work in cities and counties, the county in this kind of area is really the lead, and the city is kind of a junior partner. And this is true for everything in social services, in public health, in mental health programs. It's just the way the city and the state and the counties are structured. They're structured differently. But given that, and it's clear, I think that city staff have been working hard to try to make this work. But it's almost like, to me, the city hasn't yet found its footing about how to have an impact that's really important and really makes a difference. It's looking for the right ways to do that. And these are multifaceted challenges. I think it may be that the city's going to have to bring more attention across more city departments, more energy focused on finding ways to make some of this work. It's a really tough problem. And so I think what we've been given, in a sense, by this process is kind of a chance for a rewind. And I'm hopeful we can find some ways forward with everybody's help. Thank you.
Commissioner Tola.
Yeah, hi. I really couldn't say it any better myself with my fellow commissioners, but I do have a question moving forward, which is maybe directed to staff or perhaps Capslo, but that is the site selection process. I am curious on how a location is determined, especially if these are rotating locations, so that means there'll be more than one. I don't know who can best answer that, if that's even possible today or tonight, but I think that would be helpful context moving forward when we're faced with this once again in the future for the next site. So that's just my general question. If anyone.
Yes, I can address that. Kyle Bell, Housing Coordinator again. We are evaluating any potential site within the city, or if in partnership with the county, if those opportunities do arise. And so anything's kind of on the table. And so as I had mentioned in one of the previous slides, we have a list of constraints that we've been experiencing per location. And so each location that we're considering, we have to clear all those constraints in order to, before we can move forward with an application. And so that's currently the struggle, and that's why it's been taking so long to get to where we are today in the site selection process. Staff and Capslo also, toured the city in identifying potential locations and consideration of contacting different owners and property owners, and so we're doing a lot of work, but there's a lot more work to be done. And we are hopeful in several sites that we'll be able to move forward hopefully soon.
Just a follow-up question to that, and you may have covered some of this in your presentation, but just for the public and for our benefit, what are those next steps? What will we see? Will the next thing we see be a director's permit? Will it be another item before this commission? What will we see, and when will we know what the next steps are?
Yes, the next step would be for Capslo to, once we identify a potential site, Capslo will provide an application for the city for review, and we'll make sure it's consistent with the safe parking regulations. And then preceding that review, we will schedule it for a director's action, and we'd again do the same level of noticing. I believe for the 300 feet would be our practice for this type of application. And then with that, I think we will also, so a few lessons learned. There's more outreach we can do ahead of these actions, and so in hindsight, we will coordinate with the neighborhood groups in trying to get feedback earlier in the process, sooner than the postcards are sent out. I think that's a very vital aspect of this program that we definitely learned from our, this application, and proceed to move forward with those improvements.
And if I can add, so they are director's determinations. So normally the director has the discretion as given by the council when they adopted, the planning commission, the council, when they adopted these regulations. So it's possible that you won't see another one. It's also possible that given the circumstances of it, again, I will refer it to the planning commission. So it's not mandatory that they come before you, but it's possible.
Could we request that at least for the first one? Because given the level of interest this one elicited, could we not just could we hopefully just have it referred to us so that the public has
I will definitely take that comment into consideration, yes.
If I can add just one thing on that, we have to get some points on the board with this program. I think we should try for a layup or maybe a free throw. This was like a 3-pointer, this particular one. So hopefully we get an easier shot next time.
No, it's okay. Just to follow up with the chair's comment, yeah, if it can be automatically, I think, referred to, not automatically, but if it could be deemed referred to the Planning Commission for consideration the next time, that'd be great. And also, if you can discretionarily increase the noticing proximity, I think that would be hugely beneficial, and we probably would see less correspondence, perhaps, if they were notified, even though they technically have a 0, foot distance proximity when when it's a director's review. Is that what it was? There's no, that's what I'm saying, so 0, so there's no noticing requirement. But if increasing it above 300, I think might be beneficial, just a suggestion.
Just to comment to the gentleman with his hand raised, we procedurally can't reopen public comment, but happy to talk to you after the meeting's over.
And just to clarify Commissioner Toley's comment, we did notice this particular director's action at the 300-foot planning commission level, and we plan on doing that going forward for any future site.
And I appreciate that. It's just that I guess given the location, perhaps greater than 300 feet. Just an idea.
Any further comments or questions? Commissioner.
Yeah, I'll just make a brief comment. I like all the discussion tonight, and I appreciate the neighbors coming out and the comments that have been made. I certainly realize that there's a homeless issue and that there's a unhoused issue, and I support coming up with some sort of ideas, and I also support, making residential areas or other areas safe and nice for people to live. So it's quite a problem. So I look forward to future action on this item.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the comments of my fellow commissioners. I think that city staff is working hard on this, but I also appreciate the concerns of everyone who came out and the time they dedicated to this, to writing and showing up. And as you probably heard from my fellow commissioners, we do read all those comments. Let's see. So I guess we'll close feedback, and I'll remind the public that there is no formal action being taken tonight. At this point, we ask for a staff update and agenda forecast. Would Deputy Community Development Director Tyler Corey please provide the update?
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Cooley, members of the commission. Our next regular meeting would have been next Wednesday on 9/13. We won't have a meeting next week. We don't have any items scheduled. And the next meeting that precedes that is out on 9/27. I also do not have any current items for that, so it's likely that will probably be canceled. The first meeting in October 11th, it is likely we will have probably at least one item. So I'll keep you guys updated as we get closer to that on whether that meeting is going to happen.
All right, thank you very much. So just to reiterate, it looks like the next regular meeting is scheduled for September 27th at 6 p.m., although you did state that there are currently no items. And the regular meeting that was scheduled on September 13th will be canceled. And with that, we are adjourned.